So we work with tech companies. 90% of our clients are tech companies at Gesmer Updegrove, and we help them from all through their stages of life. I get to do what I always call the fun part, the IP. I get to talk to these startup companies and talk about how are we going to protect what it is you're creating. Often they'll say, look, we don't need to protect it. We don't need to worry about patents or even trademarks because no one else is doing this. We're in a space all by ourselves. No one else is touching us. And besides, it's taken us a long time to get where we are, so they wouldn't be able to catch up with us. And that's they might believe that, but it's not the case. I mean, if they really are successful, if they aren't successful, you're right. If you're not going to be successful, you don't need IP. But if you are successful, you got to find a way to protect it because there is going to be competition. And the competition might not come from another small two-person startup. It might be GE. It could be anybody who's in a space near you. So there has to be a way of protecting it. Often they'll want to talk about patents. Sometimes patents make sense. Sometimes it makes sense to pursue patent protection for whatever it is. If it's software, anything internet, computer related, it may make sense to do it. It depends entirely on the business and the technology that they've developed and the business model that they have and whether it makes sense to budget in doing patent work. But what I always talk about with every company is trademarks. Not enough attention is spent thinking about the names they're going to use, the brands they're going to use, the logos, and the more unique they are, the better. Often I'll find that I find this with larger companies too, but they'll come up with marks and brands that kind of say what it is they do. So they'll come up with a name for a product, and you hear the name of the product, and you kind of guess what it does. That's a terrible name. If you can guess what the product is or the service is by the name they've given it as their trademark, that's a bad mark. The best marks don't say anything about what the product is. And this is kind of a hard concept for a lot of people to get, but the best marks are ones where you can't tell what it is from the mark, and all the rest of the literature says what it does. And the reason that's important is when you're starting up a company, you are building a reputation with all your customers, your customer base, and you have to find a way to protect that. That's a way of protecting the assets that you're building, is to have marks that are very strong. So if you come up with a term that doesn't mean anything, say you've made up the term, by itself it doesn't say anything about what the products or services are, but the business you're creating builds that reputation. And now you've built a reputation that your customers recognize. And so when you go out and look at the value of what you've created for the company, that reputation is what's going to carry you, the reputation you built around the trademarks. So there are a lot of different ways of protecting the growth that these companies want to have, but I love coming up with ways to do that, strategizing.